back to another episode of the Van and Dad Pod. I'm Van.
And I am Dad, also known as Matt. So, welcome back to our next episode. And we are going to dive right in today and talk about...
Anger!
We're going to talk about anger as we continue down our road of emotions and...
Feelings.
That's right. So... We've covered in our first 3 episodes, we have covered what? Let's talk about it. We've covered sadness,
gratitude,
right?
Appreciation.
Gratitude and appreciation.
And happiness.
And now we're going to discuss
Anger.
Okay, so we both know, and you all know, that the star of the show is this guy right here. And look, he's trying to act like he's embarrassed, but he knows he's the star. And I'm just the facilitator. So we're covering emotions. So what is it that made you want to talk about anger today on the podcast?
I think anger, that there's really no reason. I just think we've been doing a lot of the good feelings, and and there's not a bajillion good feelings in the world. We also there's a lot of bad feelings too that we have to dive into.
Okay, and so it's really funny that you say that we've talked about a lot of the good feelings, because we've really discussed 2. This is our 4th episode. The first one was sadness. You know, can be good. It can be bad.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're feeling sad, obviously it's not people wouldn't call it a good feeling, but sometimes you have to go through sad things so that you can feel
happiness.
Right. And so I guess with anger, we were discussing anger yesterday. We actually tried to record the podcast yesterday, but we kept getting interrupted and
yes.
and it was just a little bit frustrating I think for both of us. But do you remember some of the definition or some of the synonyms for anger? Do you remember that?
A strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility.
That is 100% correct. And anger also is I think it can be a verb. You can
a verb.
Well, I mean, I think I guess I messed up. I think it can be a noun too. It can be a thing. A person, place, or thing. And it also is an action, like the feeling, like
feeling anger and being angry at someone or something.
Yes, the action of anger. So, tell me, we kind of discussed this, so why don't you tell
the listeners?
Yes. Well, I was looking at what you're doing, fidgeting around, and sometimes when you fidget around like that, we just actually had a discussion about it, and for full transparency, I told him that the more that he fidgets, Dad is not super good at editing video nor editing audio, and so the more that we have to start and stop, it really gets me feeling a little annoyed and a hair angry, if you will. So, and plus it's distracting for you listeners if you see Van fidgeting around or me staring just down at his hands because he's fidgeting. So, aside from that, but anger, you had brought up something yesterday. I thought that was really, really important. You said that one of the reasons you wanted to talk about anger was because people tend to not want to talk about the difficult feelings.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
I think it's because they don't want to talk about the difficult feelings. Because there's a lot of times in their life where where difficult feelings have not been the best, and they really didn't like those times.
Right. So, but a little bit more. You kind of went more in depth in that yesterday. In that you talked about how it really helps people with their mental health a little bit
Yeah.
when they talk about
Their feelings.
the feelings, and when you have feelings of anger, I can tell you and I are a lot alike. I know because you're my son, but
Yeah.
we're a lot alike in that we are. I would say we're pretty emotionally charged. Like different things can get us to an emotional point, whether it's positive or negative or whatever. But those feelings can happen really quickly, and so you were saying like to talk about those things is important because holding them in can do what?
It can get it can give you like heart diseases, and it can do a lot of things that could possibly kill you.
Well, that is true. I would think that a prolonged. I have done a little bit of research, but not a tremendous amount. But I would say that if you hold in anger, and there's probably we could look it up, or someone could look it up. Maybe you could look it up later this week, and we can report back on it next week before we start the episode.
Yeah.
But I think that it's been proven, or there's scientific proof that the holding in of feelings, especially negative feelings like anger or sadness or things like that, right? Getting when you're upset and you can't talk about it, that can create, if you do that long enough, that can create like actual physical health problems. Yeah, I don't know if it creates heart disease. Maybe your heart hurts and your soul hurts, but maybe it does. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I was watching a video when you told me to research, and it said holding anger in, I mean, or getting angry a lot can create heart disease.
I did not know that. I did not know that. Maybe we can put a link to that video that you were watching in our video. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, what are some of the things that that make you upset? What are some of the things that are annoying to you, or that make make you feel hostile or angry? What are some of those things that set you off?
Um, just like you said, having to re- having to start over on an episode 6 times. Yeah, that's pretty annoying.
That's annoying, but that's a minor thing, right?
Yeah.
Because we're actually, I mean, we actually are just having fun doing this,
Yeah.
and it was frustrating because
Yeah.
it just when you start and stop something and start and stop, you can't really get into a flow, and really the idea of this conversation between you and I is that we just get into a flow and talk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we went today. We're recording this on a Sunday.
And we went snowboarding.
We went snowboarding.
And I and Dad had a lot of problems with getting our bindings on.
Yeah, we had so first day out on the mountain this season,
Yeah.
and I mean, bottom line, I'll put this out there before I tell the story. We're pretty dang lucky, aren't we?
Yes.
I mean, we live in an area where we have 4 seasons. We live very close to some really awesome places for skiing and snowboarding. So really, what we're going to talk about is minor, but it has to do with the things that can set you off, like a little thing that can kind of snowball into something else, wouldn't you say? Because really, any day on the mountain is pretty dang good, no matter what, right? Yeah, I would say. So, do you want to tell what happened to you first, or do you want me to tell what happened to me first?
I think we should do it in order.
Okay. Okay. So, we were up on the mountain. We had taken our first run, and then we were coming down on our second run, and one of the bolts in my binding
Came off.
snapped, and we made it down, and that wasn't a big deal. And really, again, none of this was a big deal, but I had to take my board into the repair shop, and they put a new. They replaced the bolt, and then I'd been having some issues with one of my binding latches, and it was really sticking, and so we turned into this thing that took us about 20 minutes, where the guy replaced the clasp and replaced the ladder, but it was because it's so new, it was very sticky, and I was having some trouble when we got up onto the mountain. I was having some trouble getting it latched, and so that was a little bit frustrating. And then when we came down, I started to lose my patience a little bit and get angry because it wasn't coming undone and my foot was stuck in the binding. And those kinds of things, it just, you want to have, you're out having fun and you want to continue and get into a flow and like get back up on the mountain as quickly as possible. And so I think I said like God damn it, or something adult like, and but really, like, in the big picture, in the big scheme of things, it's really not something that leaves a lasting mark.
Yeah. And then several times, I just am not in general that all that good at putting my bindings on always.
Right, and you have some new boots.
Yeah.
And they're a little bit bigger, and so
Yeah,
we had
so-
to make some adjustments.
Yeah,
adjustments.
we had to we tried twice and it didn't work, so we had to go like all full out, like fully out. Like
Right.
last
So we got up after that first run, or after Dad's bindings got fixed, and we got up to the we took a run, and then we came back up, and then this time
I don't know exactly how to get my footing correctly. So when I think I have it incorrectly, and then I'm like, I can't get it on! Please help me!
Right, but in the moment, that anger is really real, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just like for me, in the moment, when you look at the big picture, it's really nothing, and it's really like we can discuss all day, every day about things that we get upset about. That when we look at the big picture, right, we could say, well, that's not something to get upset about. But when you're going through it,
Yeah.
when you're in the moment,
It really feels like
that's the only thing that matters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were having some frustrations, and I was trying to coach you through it.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, and answer this as honestly as you want to. This is just about us having a conversation. So when Dad coaches you and tries to get so you were getting frustrated, and what did I say to you first? Do you remember?
No.
I said, take a deep breath and try to reset. Did you do that? Honestly?
No.
You didn't. I could tell you didn't because because of how you were moving. So I said, hey, take a deep breath and reset. Now, when Dad coaches you like that, or I try to help you through something by giving you those kinds of instructions, does it really help you, or does it make you more frustrated?
It makes me more frustrated.
It makes you more frustrated?
Because I don't always understand it.
You don't understand when I say, like,
Not
hey, take a deep breath, or hey, relax, or...
when it's something when it's something non like that, or like how to put your boot in. I don't always understand that.
Okay. But so this what we're talking about today was maybe about a 5-minute long situation, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Like, I let you try to work through it.
It took me 5 years.
It didn't. I don't think you're 12 years old now, but anyway, it took you a while,
Yeah.
and then I tried to let you work through it, and then we discussed that you just the previous run, like, you were in your bindings so quickly, you had to wait for me.
Yeah.
Right. So then I came down and I kind of rearranged your body a little bit and helped you get it in. But I mean, again, it goes back to when you're in that moment, like, that's the only thing that you can focus on, is that
Yeah.
something that you can normally do, or that you've done time and time again.
Like 100 times.
Yeah, more than 100 times, I'd say, that you've clicked your bindings in.
Yeah. That it really gets annoying.
Yeah, so it makes you angry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I get frustrated. When I used to work in kitchens, I would have moments like that a lot. Because a lot of the time, for me, when it had to do with kitchen work, it was usually the thing. I always, when I look back at like why I was getting angry or what the frustration point was from, it usually came back to me not
Being
being.
able to do a recipe.
No, 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 no.
That was just
Good
a
guess.
random
Good
guess.
guess. But it usually came down to me not either communicating my expectations to my staff members or me just not communicating
Enough.
enough or thinking that I could
Do.
skip a step or take a shortcut and then something not turning out properly. I always, when I was working in kitchens, I tried to be as efficient as I possibly could, and if I could see my way through something, like visualize it without doing a certain thing that I knew that the recipe called for, I would try. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But most of the time when I got upset, it had to do with my own failure. Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah.
Tell me some of the times that you felt like that.
When I can't do something like do a pass correctly, because I've been taught a lot of times how to do a pass.
In soccer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That makes you get upset with yourself?
Yeah. Or like one time at school, I was trying to get a ball, and we have like portables, not as in like portables like that you put in your backpack, but we have like portable classrooms, and there's like run up ways where you can go into your classroom, and I went under one of those to get a ball, and yeah, that kind of made me mad because I know I shouldn't go under really dirty.
You got mad at yourself.
Yeah.
Well, then you don't really like to get like dirty. And you were like frustrated that you were all dirty, right?
Yeah. Cause I have a very big brain, but when it comes to stuff like that, I don't use it very much.
And so were you frustrated with yourself because you didn't think it through? Yeah. Yeah, I know how that goes. And then when we were having our discussion yesterday, there was a couple of things that you brought up that frustrated you too. We'll talk about the first thing, and you brought up specifically judgment.
Yes.
Now,
Not only to myself, but to other people.
so like when tell me what you mean by that.
Like, I don't like to see like other people judging people by what, like, let's say a drawing by what it looks like, because they probably tried their best and gave it their best effort.
Okay, so like if someone you know is making, like when someone's making fun of someone else.
Yeah.
Because of something they did or didn't do.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So, have you had anything like that happen to you or your friends? It sounds like you might be speaking about a specific instance.
No, I just feel like if I do, it could possibly make me pretty mad.
Okay, and then you also, I know, have stood up for some people because things that others were doing to them made you angry. Tell me a little bit about some of that.
At my old school, people would make fun of other kids for having crushes on other girls.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't like that. Sometimes when somebody was being like, "You have a crush, you have a crush," I didn't like that, and I was like, "Hey, why don't you do that to me?"
Oh, you said that? That's very admirable. And you stood up for your friend Olivia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
That's not something I quite remember, but like I know, like when I do that, it does make me feel good.
When you stand up for someone?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty outspoken, and I think that you try to do your best to do what's right. The other thing, and the other thing that we talked about yesterday
Was
was racism, right?
yeah, I hate racism.
Yeah, yeah. That's hate it. I mean, we have no tolerance for racism, and we're trying to learn to be better allies to our black and brown friends. Is that right?
Yes,
And to all races, for sure.
yes.
Um, we don't need to get into specifics, but what are some of the things that bother you when it comes to racism?
I just think it's the fact that racism is when you don't think is when you think somebody is not as good as you just because they have a different color of skin.
They don't have the same rights,
Yeah,
or they don't deserve the same things,
yeah,
or they're not. And it doesn't even have to do that. That's true. I know that we joke from time to time in our family about some of the stuff. Um, Racism obviously isn't funny, and that's not what I'm getting at. But we talk about the fact that we're men and we're fighting against the patriarchy, right? Along with other fronts that we feel strongly about, wouldn't you say?
yes,
And it's ironic, I guess, and funny that we talk about not only um, and again, maybe I'm using the wrong words, but we talk about how to be allies to not only our black and brown friends and people of color, but also to women, right?
yes.
Yes.
Which I think why you say that's kind of weird is because we are the patriarchy.
Well, we're men,
Yes,
but we're not necessarily the patriarchy. You're a young man and I'm an older man, but I would say for I don't know. Maybe some of the people that know me that listen would say that haven't been an ally of women, but I would tend to disagree with that. I can tell you that from my own personal experience, always felt that I treated people fairly and tried to give people opportunities. Like in my kitchens, I had people that worked on my lines um, that were some of the best line cooks that I ever had were women. Some of the best prep people the best prep person that I ever had worked for me was a woman. Um, the I the where I was last before I started the job that I've been in for the last few years. Um, at the end of my time there, I would say I had the a woman working for me that was probably the best line cook in our whole organization. But I also came up in a time that was a little bit different, and we weren't as aware, and I was young when I got my first job as an executive chef, and first time being in charge of a group of people. So I learned as I went. Definitely made some mistakes, but I feel like for the people that I've surrounded myself with in life, as far as professionally and personally, that I've tried to be an advocate and an ally for not only women but also
our black and brown friends.
yes. I took it upon myself. One of the reasons that I speak Spanish so well is because I worked with a guy that was older and didn't want to learn Spanish, a white guy that was kind of on my same level, and I felt like that the guys, most of the people, like he and I were probably the only white guys in the kitchen, and then everyone else was Mexican or from some Central or South American country. And so Spanish was the predominant language that they all spoke. And my feeling was that if I could communicate with them in a way that was comfortable to them, our ideas that we got out of that were going to be better than just my ideas. And I've had guys that worked for me that I've um, gone on to promote them onto running their own restaurants and being. I had a guy that started out as a prep cook and a dishwasher for me, and he was ended up being a sous chef at a restaurant. And yeah, I try to. Anyway, we were talking about racism, and I guess we got off topic, but anger, anger.
Yeah.
So we don't want to hold anger in, right? What are some of the we talked last week about meditation a little bit and using that to bring you back to center and help you find happiness. When you're feeling angry, um, what are some of the things that you do to help you work through that anger?
Sometimes I try to go to my room and I scream into a pillow,
Uh huh.
and or I just like lay on a pillow, put my face into it sometimes, and I just like cry it out.
Okay, and then we come back and try to discuss whatever it is that you're angry about or what got you upset. Because a lot of times, a lot of times, and this happens in I'm sure lots of families, is that parents will get frustrated because we want our kids to be better listeners, and then we forget that they're kids, right? Or we try to. Um, Sometimes you get upset when you try to pull a fast one on mom or I, and then we call you out on it, and you like try to really dig in your heels, and that gets you upset sometimes, right?
Yeah, but sometimes I'm not actually pulling the fast one.
Sometimes you aren't. Sometimes you aren't, and that's our bad too, right?
Yeah.
But not because just because we've been kids and we've tried to do the same thing with our parents. I think so. We're a little bit skeptical.
Yeah.
I never pulled a fast one on my mom. um, your grandma Caroline. Yeah, I was winking. I'm sure the people will pick up on that. But so, and then sometimes like you'll be doing some work or a problem, and you just get frustrated because you can't
Yeah.
figure it out
Yeah, like I get stuck on the first problem, and I don't get enough instruction from like the instructions
from the teacher or
from
or
like
from like the homework packet or whatever it is, or like
yeah or I do homeschool, and I read the instructions one time. Well, I don't do homeschool every day. I just do it on Fridays.
Fridays.
Yeah.
Correct.
I read the paper. It was a math worksheet, and I read the entire instructions, but I still didn't get enough instruction. But I still didn't understand it.
Correct. Correct. And so that got you frustrated. Yeah. And so when those types of things happen, do you like it more when mom and dad let you try to work through the problem on your own
Um,
first?
um, I would like it when I do like it when you give me a few tries. Sometimes I don't.
Sometimes you don't.
Yeah, so it's kind of in the middle.
In the middle. Yeah. But also sometimes you don't ask for help, right?
Yeah, sometimes because I think I try to because I think I can figure it out, but that's not always the case because usually I can't.
No, most of the time you figure things out.
Yeah, but like, because like when you need help, you should ask for it.
That's true. You know what I always
Instead of just wasting your energy getting frustrated on a paper or a paper airplane or whatever.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? Could be making a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting dinner ready. Whatever. You should just
Yeah.
but I've often said and it was told to me that asking for help is actually a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. When it's okay to say that like, hey, I don't have this, or I need some help. I need help to get through a certain spot. That takes a lot of awareness, self-awareness, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've been talking for about half an hour,
Yes.
and I think we talked a little bit about anger, didn't we?
Yes.
We had a conversation. I'll know that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
We went off topic a lot of times.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's what this thing's about. I think we touched on anger and some of the things that happen to make us angry, and you said some of the things that you do to deal with it. Um, I don't know if I touched on anything that I did to deal with it, but we will maybe address that another time. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, give us a thumbs up.
Please, so he can.
You know it's coming.
Sharing.
Smash that like button
Please.
right there. Is it right? Is it right? Right there? Right there? Or right there? Where is it? Subscribe.
People, please
Subscribe,
do it so he stops
like.
saying it.
Anyway, we want to thank you for hanging out with us, tolerating our shenanigans, and if you like what we're doing, in all seriousness, subscribe, give us a like, give us some feedback. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spreaker, wherever you can find podcasts, you'll probably be able to find the Van and Dad Pod. And we just hope that you guys enjoy your week and come back and join us next week when we talk about another
Feeling.
Peace out, everyone.
Peace out.
Van, I love you.
I love you too, and I love all you listeners out there.
And we love all 14 of you too. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.